Good morning, everybody. As the title says, legislation updates. This is the title of the presentation. Why I chose this topic is because this is European legislation, but here in Jordan you follow more and more closely those European legislation. So it's to give you an idea what happens in Europe today when it comes to energy efficiency, sound level, filtration. So it's just to give you an idea of what happens not that far from here. Update on eco-design. Eco-design, what is eco-design? Eco-design is a European directive which will publish minimum efficiency or minimum requirements before one product is launched in the market. This is not directly minimum requirement, but this is adopted through a committee in Europe. And then it implements the products to have environmental standards. It is a bit 2008. The products are grouped into 10 groups of products, where under air conditioning. As you know, I'm from the air conditioning business, so I will focus on this topic today. These are the products, very small for you, but these are the typical categories of eco-design. Divided in lot 11, lot 10, lot 2, lot 1. That is how the European Union is categorizing all these efficiency levels. So lot 1, for example, lot 11, for example, is considering the fan efficiency. And the fan efficiency is applicable in commercial business, in VRF business, in chilled water application, refrigeration, ventilation, heating, and ventilation. So all the products are categorized like this in order to find a way back and in order also to split the certification between products to be not to take a very, very big chapter. These are a collection of very small chapters for all the small equipment, all the small components. This is what we are today in 2018, and you can see that, for example, the lot 10 for air conditioning has been realized in 2013, and in 2020, this will be a new eco-design directive for the residential market, for example, the first one, lot 10, air cost below 12 kilowatt. 12 kilowatt is 3.5 tons. What we are today, they are developing, and what is the next one? The next one will be a review of the energy labeling. You know, A, B, C, D with the colors that you receive when you buy a fridge or a television or an air conditioning. This is the next topic which will be tackled by the European Union. When you look at the situation today in Europe, this is the situation today, when you have a EER or COP exceeding 5.1, you can categorize your product as A+. When you have above 5.6 is A++, and so on and so on. It is just to make a category between the units to show this is efficient or this is less efficient. What is the proposal of the European Union for 2018? Is to change the scale. It's to say, from 4.8 you are F, from 6.8 you are D, and so on and so on. And you can see that to become A, you need a COP of 11.5. This is a big problem for us in the industry. 11.5 is too high. We consider it's too high. The same for heating. Why we consider it's too high? It's because this does not reflect the reality. 11.5 will lead to, let's say, testing methodology which is not reflecting the reality. What I say here is the energy level A will, this improvement will impact the comfort level, clearly. It will not lead to savings in the real life. These results, theoretical energy saving, are tested in laboratories, not in real life. And as an extent, what will happen? the people will have difficulties to install those units because the indoor units will become so big that we will have issues inside. There will be some limitations for installation. In cooling mode, when the indoor unit is too big, you will not dehumidify, which will not be very comfortable. And also in heating, you will have cold draft. So again, no comfortable. As a result, the customer will change the set point, will switch off the AC, will drop the temperature, so it will not lead to saving. So just for the sake of publishing efficiency value is not really something beneficial. So we don't agree, we as manufacturers, the industry, we are all grouped together, and we don't agree with this new legislation. We want to have something like 7 as a maximum efficiency. This is what we are proposing to the European Union, efficiency of 7 to be categorized as A. Because it's true, when you look at the labeling, if I go back to the labeling, this is not really readable. The A plus, A++, A triple plus, it becomes complicated. It would be better to go to a system, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, much simpler to put it in the mind of the people. But we don't want those values of 11.5. It's too high. We consider it too high and not reflecting the real efficiency of a device. These are laboratory testing. So this is the next battle. We, the manufacturers, will fight against the European Union. This is for next year. Another thing, a new thing which is already realized, the ISO 16890. This is something which is today already applied. It speaks about the indoor air quality. You know, there is pollution in the world. There is a big pollution in the world. What is the most polluted environment? Is it outside or is it inside? What is where is the most pollution? It's not outside. It's inside of the building that you face the most polluted environment. So we want to tackle the air treatment. And if I take some pictogram, we are eating 1 kilogram of food per day. We are drinking 2 liters of water per day. And we are breathing 15 kilograms of air per day. So it is crucial to pay attention to this value of the filtration and of the indoor air quality, IAQ. The highest mass of the particle in the air comes from particles in the range of 100 nanometers to 2.5 micrometers. This represents the biggest mass of the particles in the air. The number of the particles, the biggest one, 90% of the numbers are those particles. So this is what we need to stop or to filter. The lighter the particles, the longer it remains in the air as well. Particle equal or smaller to 1 micrometer need the highest attention. When you look at the former legislation, you had the EN 779 2002, EN 779 2012, which was classifying the performance of filters. Today, we will go to ISO 16890. And this is the standard organization. This is a mondial, a global organization, ISO. And they decided to change this classification in order to be more respectful of the size of the particle. When you look at the human body, they will call from 0.1 nanometer to 1 micrometer, they will call it PM1. For bigger particles, they will call it PM25 and PM10. This will be the classification in function of the human body. So we were all used, when it came to filter classification, from the class gross filters, G1, G2, G3, and G4. This is what we were using in our tender. M5 and M6 for medium filters.
and fine filters F7, F8, F9. This will be historic. This is history already today. Today, with the new ISO 16890, these are the classification. So ISO EPM, so it's a particle matter fraction, PM1 for the very small ones, PM2.5 for bigger particles, and PM10 for even larger particles, and coarse, so very, very rough filter, for very large particles. So this is the new classification. And this will come with a fraction to say I am efficient at PM1 for 80%. So this will be together with a fraction, with a percentage. So this is the new regulation regarding the filters. So you better get used to it. If you want to profile as an actual company, you better get used to it. So this is what we had. If you look at a graph, function of the pressure drop and the efficiency, you had the gross filter, medium filter, fine filter, and now you have the same according to ISO 16890. The F-gas regulation. This is a hot topic. You know the refrigerant? The refrigerant prices in Europe, you had the price from beginning 2018 and today you multiplied the price by 4. The same kilogram of refrigerant you were buying in January, today you are paying it 4 times more. So the F-gas regulation is the origin of this. But first I want to see with you the brief history of the refrigerant we were using in the machine. In the 1920s, we were using fluorine, chlorine and carbon to what we called CFCs. The biggest example are R11 and R12. Then in the 50s, they discovered that by adding some hydrogen, they could make cheaper to produce. So they jumped on this opportunity, R22, R123. But starting in the 60s, 70s, they realized those gases had a big problem. It was the ozone depletion potential. So we were destroying the ozone at the pole. So they decided to tackle this problem and they created new gases starting from the 90s. The R407C, R410A, 134A. They suppress the chlorine in the molecule, and they were solving by this the ozone depletion potential. But then they realized at the same moment that there was another danger. It was the global warming potential of those refrigerants. They realized, okay, ozone depletion potential is gone, but global warming potential is a new threat. So they wanted to tackle this. And they tackled this by imposing new rules on refrigerants. So what is next? Next, we will have low GWP, low global warming potential, alternative refrigerant, natural refrigerant, or to reduce the greenhouse gases emission and the global warming. This is the goal behind this regulation. Global warming potential, to see the definition, it expresses the potential impact that the refrigerant would have if released in the atmosphere. It is expressed in CO2, equivalent CO2. It compares the impact of 1 kilogram of refrigerant to 1 kilogram of CO2 over a period of 100 years. Impact can be avoided by preventing leaks. If your system is continuously leaking, you generate refrigerant in the atmosphere, so you don't achieve the goal. And also by proper end of life, recovery of destruction. We say in the European Union, everybody should, let's say, contribute to the reduction of the F-gases. Every single sector. So the power sector you see in blue will have to reduce its emission. The residential has to reduce the emission. The industry, transport, and on CO2, agriculture will also to reduce the emissions. We, as refrigerant manufacturer, it's only the non-CO2. So we are already a small contributor, but everybody should contribute. So there we will tackle the amount of refrigerant. So the European Union imposes some quota, import quota for new goods coming to Europe or manufactured in Europe. And those quotas starting in 2015 was the benchmark, 100%, and then we were reducing this quota down to something like 21% in 2030. But you see, in 2018, there was a very big drop in the refrigerant allowed to be imported in Europe. So this is the quantity of the CO2 equivalent that you can import in Europe for the construction or for the already in AC, actually. So this is CO2 equivalent. So in 2018, there was a big drop, suddenly from 90% to 60%. So suddenly the refrigerant price were jumping. And you can see that the next one will be in 2021. So you can ask yourself the question, the refrigerant will be problematic in the future. So that's why we change the refrigerant. We say if the quota is expressed in CO2 equivalent, we can change refrigerant with a refrigerant which is less harmful for the planet with a lower GWP refrigerant. We can also reduce the quantity in the devices. By achieving this, we will also reduce the GWP. And we can recover and reuse. When you have a split unit, the legislation in Europe is very clear. Split unit, indoor unit and outdoor unit, with refrigerant quantity below 3 kilo. The GWP value of the refrigerant used should be lower than 750 equivalent CO2. So, R-410A, the refrigerant we are using today, is not allowed anymore. That's why R32 comes on board. R32 is the new refrigerant. In Europe, everybody stops already to manufacture R-410A, and they all produce R32 split units. This is still to come in Jordan, but it is for tomorrow. When you look at VRF, it's above 3 kilo of refrigerant. There, the R32 is allowed, of course, and the R-410A is also allowed. So there, no problem for the VRV as long as the legislation imposes. When you look at the reduction of the GWP, you see the GWP value of R-410A was 2088 CO2 equivalent. The GWP of the R32 is 675, so a lot less. When you look at the quantity of refrigerant to achieve the same capacity, there also from one nominal charge, you reduce to 76% to achieve the same capacity. When we multiply those two values, we found out that starting from a split having 2088 CO2 equivalent, we dropped to 513 GWP. It's 1/3 of the GWP. It's less 25% of the charge. So we get something like 1/4 of the environmental impact or 75% reduction as a minimum. This allows, with the same GWP value in the quota, to manufacture 4 splits instead of 1, with the same impact. So it's very important because AC business is growing. With the global warming that we have, we need more and more, even in cold countries, we need air conditioning. If the quota remains what it is, if we still take the same refrigerant, we would be very, very soon limited in production. So we don't want this. We want to limit the environmental impact, but we need also to sell this. Then I have the new technology trends in HVAC market. This is very fast, but this is what happens now in the industries. If I take the chillers, for example, one big revolution of last year was last year. We are busy more than 10 years with this, but it becomes very, very standard to have inverter mounted in the chillers. It's very important because the efficiency is so much higher, the payback time is so short that we should all use inverter chillers. It's much, much, much beneficial, as the chillers anyhow, they are running at partial load all the time. And that is the place where the inverters takes all its sense, is at partial load. So this is one of the big standards. The new but the new trend is the combination of microchannel coils with R32 refrigerant. It leads to, in chillers also, 68% of the refrigeration charge, or the GWP, for the same chiller. So there as well, we protect the planet by doing this. What is the microchannel coil? Microchannel coil is a full aluminum coil. Full aluminum, not copper aluminum anymore. And if you can see here on this drawing, you have the collector from the coil, and the refrigerant is circulating in all these small tubes here. And we reduce a lot the quantity of refrigerant using this kind of coils. So it's very interesting. It's high performance, the weight is less, the quantity of metal is less, low refrigerant charge, we reduce the refrigerant charge, the robustness because it's one metal, and anti-corrosion, of course, are possible. Full aluminum, we don't have galvanic corrosion, so we also save us from some potential problem of erosion of the unit. Also, what is the new systematic trend? It's the fact that the chillers are always equipped with master-slave. When you had the traditional plant and the building requires 60% of the load, what was the traditional solution? Is to have two chillers running at 100% and one chiller at 40%. This is not an efficient solution. The new solution is to have inverter chillers, or non-inverter chillers, but the chillers that are able to communicate with themselves. So they act like one machine. And here in this case, all the chillers are running at 60%. It's much more efficient. And the industry says we can save 5 to 10% just because the chillers are able to speak together and acting like one machine. In our equipment, we have last in, last out to start the compressor and to equalize the running time, for example. Also, the fact that we use variable primary flow. In the past, what we had one pump and a decoupler and then a secondary pump to the terminals. Today, the chillers are equipped with variable flow, are capable to cope with variable flow. You have only one set of pump, and you can work in your circuits. So less pumps, the hydronic circuit is much more simple, and you save a lot of money in running cost. How much? 20%, up to 20%, just because you avoid installation of the pump. The pump in a chiller is accounted for 15% of the consumption of the plant. 15%. If you can save some pumps, you will save a lot of money in running costs. And you don't want to pay too much electricity to the Jordanian electricity company. You want to save or to protect your wallet. Electricity is expensive, so let's save money where we can save money. The last point is also in air handling unit. Air handling unit is considered to be a side equipment. Actually, it's a big consumer of electricity, the HU. A very big consumer of electricity. Why? Because you have fans, you have treated air, you cool it down with a chiller or DX equipment, so it consumes a lot of electricity. And there are also in eco-design a lot of guidelines to use extra efficiency equipment. For example, high efficiency fan. You know, in the equipment, what is the proportion of the investment compared in the whole life cycle of a unit? Let's take a chiller, or let's take a AHU. What is the proportion of the investment? The investment in the total life system of a system, the investment is 10%. Why do you want to save money on this 10%? As it is representing only 10%. Every single JD that you put for energy efficient components will save you money on the 90 other percent. So there you will save money. So saving money in the investment time is not something very clever. So that's why in Europe, they impose us very efficient components, like the fans, like the heat recovery systems, low pressure drop. If we have low pressure drop, the fans have to turn, it's easier, they don't have to deliver static pressure. And also the ceilings, it is extremely important. If you have leakages here to the door, these are all the treated air which is going out of the unit. So there you waste a lot of energy as well. I think I arrive at I'm sure I arrive at the end of my presentation. So I would like to thank you very much again for the opportunity to give this lecture. Thank you.